All right, welcome back to Lost for Words with Lori. It is a Thursday. It is May 26th. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. I hope everybody is doing well. It's been quite a few days since I have last spoken to all of you lovely peeps. I've been a busy, well, kind of busy, as relative as it can be. It's been a little crazy around here in my world and in toxic cesspool land and everywhere else around chaotic central, right? So I hope everyone is doing well. I figured I would give you guys a little bit of update of what's going on in my little neck of the woods and let the struggle's real. That's today's kind of topic of discussion, I guess. I don't know, triggers, I guess, and kind of a little bit about what's been kind of happening in the world of Lori, because I'm kind of a big deal. I don't feel like a big deal as of late, but yeah, so I don't know. The last podcast that I did was kind of touching on what's been kind of going on in my first world with the grieving process and how I've been handling all of that, especially with some close friends of mine dealing with some grief in their immediate world with their mom having, terminal health issues, and watching that kind of unfold and being available and present for them, and kind of how that has affected me, and being, that I'm kind of dealing with my own grief process and whatnot, with Toby dying. And, it's interesting that, watching, I don't know, the perspective of watching other people in their process of trying to unpack how their emotions are a roller coaster of them trying to deal with watching a loved one basically go through that and suffer, and knowing that they're basically going to die, and having to be present and available emotionally for somebody who's going through that, and the trigger that the emotions that triggers for you when you're kind of reliving a lot of that, and remembering what it felt like, is hard. And I'm not going to say it's unbearable, but it can be healing in a lot of ways, but it is difficult in some areas, because you do relive a lot of those emotions. But hopefully it can offer a little sense of comfort in a way where people that are struggling with those emotions can understand that they're not alone, or that the things that they're feeling aren't abnormal, or, I mean, they're definitely unique. I mean, we all deal with the grieving process differently, and I would never assume that, to tell anybody, oh, it's going to be okay, or you'll get over it, or any of that, because that's just not acceptable advice to give anybody who's dealing with something so heavy and traumatic. But I find myself, as I'm trying to be available and give comfort, or at least to give some words of wisdom from some perspective of somebody who's been through a lot of the roller coaster of emotions that my friends are going through, sitting back and recalling those feelings and those instances of how I felt or what I went through. And it's been triggering and it's been difficult. But at the same time, giving me some insight as to how to, come to terms with a lot of those emotions and how I feel. But yeah, the grieving process sucks, I've made friends with other people who have experienced really traumatic loss of close loved ones, be it parents or husbands or spouses or partners or children, and how we've all kind of come together to help each other and lean on each other for support. And it's crazy that the grief process has, you know, because it's unique and we all handle it differently, in the different stages of it, and how everybody, no matter how long it's been, has to navigate all of those emotions. And it's deep, and it's terrifying, and it's scary. Um, but it's interesting, and it's interesting how it really makes you sit back and think about the human experience, and being, and your own mortality, and about, you know, how that struggle really is real. And we all at some point are going to experience that. We're all going to have to come to terms with it, because death is the universal leveler, and none of us can escape it. If it isn't somebody that we're close to, it eventually will be one of us. And yeah, that's not a necessarily a comforting thought, is it? And whew, it's deep, and it's heavy, and it's can be dark. And trying to find hope and positivity and optimism in all of that is sometimes a real struggle, and that can also be very triggering. But I'll tell you, that's been a lot of heavy thought process. It's been a lot of deep thinking and introspective, a lot of that this week, because of that. And, of no harm, no foul of anybody, just something to really kind of chew on. Because I find that in those moments when I'm feeling sad, or even, when I'm feeling very emotional about my situation, and feeling really, I don't know, sympathetic for my friends or my loved ones, or even people that I know who've been through that. I don't feel sorry for myself, but I try to figure out what's next. And I've talked before about, this is my life now, whatever that looks like, and try to put that into perspective for other people of, trying to learn what living one day at a time looks like, and trying not to get ahead of myself to, I should be doing this or I should be doing that, is a difficult one to wrap your brain around. And that struggle is very real, because within all of these stages that we all have to comprehend and go through, watching that cycle of, this can't be happening, or now I'm angry, or now I'm sad, or I've accepted that this is the way it's going to be, and then watching that circle and keep going back around, and then trying to navigate all the emotions that go with that. And some days you're really okay with it, and some days you're really not okay with it. And I'm still just trying to learn how to be okay with that, and to sit in that space, and sometimes to even ask for help when I'm not doing okay. And that's not always an easy path. It's not always easy to do. And then, of course, having to navigate regular first world adulting and responsibilities, and work, and your friends, and other, got to pay bills, and you got to eat, and you've got other things that you must do on top of that. And it's hard to not get caught up in wanting to just shut down and not do anything. And that's not realistic, at least not for me. And then trying to be social or have friends, and not get sucked into other people's drama, or try to not caretake anybody else, or, use any self-destructive coping mechanisms that are unhealthy for you in, whatever that looks like. And so the struggle is very real. At least for me it is. And it's difficult. It's a difficult path to navigate. And all in all, the best that I can do is just try to take it one day at a time. And some days, I'll tell you, it's harder than others. Some days well, let's just see if I can get through my work day, and then we'll see what happens in the evening. I find that maintaining my regular employment is pretty much simpler. I did take on a second job to at least to get me out of my house. And that's helped an awful lot too, because it does keep me busy. It does keep me from kind of being a hermit or, kind of not socializing or being around humans, because it would be very easy to just kind of close off from the rest of the world and forget about it. But that became very problematic over the winter because, then I started getting really caught up in the drama of what was going on in, social media, and that became very toxic. So I had to really stop doing that thing and establish some really solid boundaries, because that kind of drama was just a nightmare. And, you learn a lot of lessons from that, but socializing for me needed to be done in my first world and not on social media, because it was problematic. And social media is and can be very toxic, especially with the way the world is going right now, and of course the circles that I was running with on social media too, and the people there just being assholes and that kind of deal. So things have kind of settled down to a certain manner. But life is never simple, and we navigate it the way that we can. I find that identifying the things that tend to trigger me and put me in a different state of mind helps a lot. And of course I have a professional, I have therapy that helps me with those things, and we talk at least once every 3 weeks or so, and go over the things that we've talked about prior, and it keeps me on point, it keeps me on track, and it helps me with my interactions with my friends and with other people, and holds me accountable. And that's obviously people who do listen to my podcast or know what I'm about know how important accountability is, and holding yourself accountable as well as others is to me in my first world, because it goes along with boundaries and expectations and all of the things that I'm trying to learn to be a better human. So those kinds of things, and identifying those triggers and those coping mechanisms to go with that, are really important. So that's kind of where I've been anyway, in any case. And it's become a pretty important topic of discussion with the people that are closest to me, as far as just figuring out what's next and what I'm going to do, or what and it helps open up that discussion for people who are struggling, that I'm close to, and what they need to do, and be able to listen to their struggle and what their triggers are, and help them, listen to them, at least be present, and offer support as they talk through their own things, because sometimes we have our own answers in our head, but you just need to speak it out loud into existence, or at least get it out there, and have a friend or have a group of people who help you hold yourself accountable. I've been doing that in my professional world as well as my personal world. If I say I'm going to do something, then I can have people hold me accountable for that. And it's, if you don't tell anybody you have goals, or you have ambitions, or you have things that you want to do, then it's much more difficult to be held accountable for that. So you don't have to accomplish anything. And then, then it's a problem, because you can talk shit to yourself, or you can say you're going to do something and then you never really have any accountability for that. That's one of the reasons why I handle or conduct myself the way that I do with everything. That's why I tell people what I'm going to do. That's why I give you guys updates on my podcast. That's why, in my first world social media on Facebook or anywhere else, I'm accountable. I put up accountability posts for what I'm doing. And I share myself pretty transparently because I need that. I need to be accountable for myself. And since I'm alone and I don't have Toby, or, my daughter's 1,200 miles away, or I don't have family really, it's hard to be accountable. And I have first world friends, and they're the ones that I always reach out to and ask for help, to say, hey, I need somebody to bitch slap me and keep me on track. And so I'm grateful for that, very much so, because I do need that from time to time, for people to say, hey, you said you were going to do this, and now I need you to follow through. And I think everybody needs that. Like I said, I have a therapist who holds me accountable to the highest degree, as long as, I'm completely transparent with her, which I am. And that's, again, my responsibility. That's just part of my growing process and my grief. So, that's what I've been thinking about. That's what I've been kind of talking about. That's kind of what we've been working on, as far as, just the struggle that I've been dealing with, as I come up on, 7 months now. And time just goes so fast, and I can't even believe really the reality of that is kind of crazy to me, that it's already been that long. I mean, in depending on who you ask, 7 months doesn't seem like that long, but from the grand scheme of things, some days it feels like it was just yesterday, and some days I can't believe it's been, already, because, we would be, solidifying all of our wedding plans by now, because that would be creeping up on us very quickly. And that's just not happening. So now it's kind of, I'm trying to determine what I need to do, to fill in the gaps of time, and what's going to make me happy. And that's the hardest struggle of them all, is really that start over reset button of not knowing what's next, and trying not to overthink it or get stuck in a woulda, coulda, shoulda. Because I don't know, and I need to be allowed to give myself the freedom or the space to just try different things, or go outside of my comfort zone, and try to determine what things are going to make me happy. And I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss for words to use that, ironically, I guess, as the best way to put that. So, the struggle is real, and it's real for a lot of people. The world is a crazy place right now, and it's crazy in a lot of ways, socially, politically, economically, and the realization that it seems, and I could be wrong, and I don't know what your thoughts are, and you can feel free to comment on them if you will, but it seems that the world right now, especially here where we are in the United States, is hell-bent on the blame game, and everybody wanting to try to blame everybody for what's going on, instead of being self-accountable or being accountable. Nobody is accepting any accountability for what is causing any issues. And that's very apparent, like I said, whether it's political, social, or economic. And it seems like people are very invested in spending an awful lot of time trying to point blame somewhere other than, looking at first world or looking at home first. And that's the struggle. And I think if we spend more time looking at ourselves and where our own accountabilities lie for the things that we have control over, instead of trying to find blame or victimize ourselves for the things that we don't have control over, the triggers would be a little less, maybe. But that's my 2 cents on that anyway. But y'all know how I feel about accountability. Own your shit, people. And I know it's frustrating when it seems like politicians and other people aren't holding accountability for their stuff, and those things affect us greatly. But there are some things that we have control over, and there's some things we don't. We all know what the answers are for those things, and you know what you have control over in your first world that directly affects you, and you know what doesn't. But at the end of the day, sitting down and complaining and bitching about things that you can't really fix doesn't really solve anything. It kind of makes you a whiner, you know? At the end of the day, all we can do is really just wash our hands and try to be good humans. But that's my 2 cents. I miss y'all. I hope you guys are doing well. I am working on a new podcast to cover a topic that has been flooding toxic cesspool world. Hoping to get that out over the weekend. I have to work my second job over the next couple of days, and then I will have a day off. I am lagging on some of my other social media obligations that I've been doing, but you know, one day at a time. If I don't feel it, I don't do it. And that's just got to be good enough. So I will touch base with y'all soon. I hope you're doing well. Have a great long holiday weekend if I don't talk with you soon. But until then, guys, wash your fucking hands, be good humans, and I'll talk with you soon.